We'll give that a second. So every jam, we do a technology update. In the past, we have done this on the online day. We have some major initiatives that are going on, and so we decided to push this to the in-person day. You know who I am. Jennifer's title is the Associate Director, Member Services and Engagement. It's a new title, so I don't remember it just right off the top of my hat, but we work very closely together. I'm going to talk briefly about the general update, and then Jen's going to talk us about the TCS Pathways. So that's why the name of our presentation is The Path to the Future. So this is the general update, and we are recognizing that we are the last thing between you and lunch. And I don't know about you in the back, but for those of us here, the door is open to the kitchen, and I can actually smell the lunch up here. It smells pretty good. You guys can smell it, right? Sorry, online, I'm pretty sure you can't smell it, but trust me, it smells good. Okay, so before we talk about us, we do need to talk about you. And so we're going to talk about just a little bit about how things are going on the general articulation front. So within the TCS, the transfer credit system, we always have requests that are circulating through the system. As you learned in Transfer 101, there are 40 post-secondary institutions, and they're always sending out courses throughout the year. One course can be sent out to 39 other partners, so it does have the potential to balloon fairly quickly. In a typical year, at any given time, you would have about 3,000 to 4,000 articulation requests circulating through the system. And that might seem like a lot, but when you kind of break it down by institution, by department, it works out to about 50 to 100 requests that are kind of working their way through the system. However, right now, we currently have about 10,000 requests for articulation circulating. And so if you're a data person like I am, you might look at that and say, well, what is going on? Well, there was something that went on this year. What happened was there was one institution that sent out their entire course catalog to every other institution. I'm not going to mention that institution, but because you were all at institutions, you all know who you received those requests from. And while that had an impact on your work, more importantly, it had a work on my work, because it ruined all my statistics for the year. And I got a lot of emails from people saying, what's going on here? It was an atypical event, and there was some reasons behind that. And to your credit, the volume of evaluation, so the way that you have responded to these requests, has actually been higher than previous years. So you really have stepped up to the plate. I do know that some of you have complained to me about the backlog, but I do appreciate the work that you are doing. There was 27,000 updates to the BC Transfer Guide last year. And that is significant. And when I say updates, it's not always new agreements, okay? It's also updating old agreements, changing numbers, making sure things are current. And we do have a lot of tools that help automate that. So it's not 27,000 individual transactions, but there's been a lot of activity. And that is a testament to the work that you do. So thank you for all the work that you do. We have had a number of new initiatives that have come out this year. The new BCCAT website, which you've all seen. Last year in the tech update, I talked about the BC Transfer Guide widget, which allows institutions to connect to our BC Transfer Guide and create their own transfer guide right on their website. A couple of your institutions have taken advantage of that. When I talked about it last year, we were developing it. This year, I can tell you it is developed and it is available. So if you are looking to take advantage or use the BC Transfer Guide widget, please feel free to contact me. We'd love to have your institution use the BC Transfer Guide widget. We also have our reciprocity tool. These are tools that identify opportunities to reverse articulate. So if you have a course transferring one way, do you want to articulate it back in the other direction? Rich's presentation has given me thoughts about how we could use AI to possibly create some tools in that regard. So that tool has now been made available. And of course, the TCS Suite update. So this is basically where we take your internal transfer tables and publish them in the BC Transfer Guide. This is for your non-BC equivalencies. Although what we have learned is that many of you are keeping BC equivalencies that are not in the Transfer Guide hidden behind your tables. And so we've added those in as part of the process. We have now over 81,000 equivalencies from outside of British Columbia, which is in addition to the 300,000 courses agreements. So good for you. all of this continues to make BC the destination for transfer students. That was the catchphrase or marketing phrase I was trying to sell to Rob. And capitalize the word "the." BC is the place for transfer. Now, we have a couple of current initiatives underway. Usually we have a couple of major big new developments that are coming out. I'm sad to say that none of these are probably going to make, the first one definitely is not going to make a press release. We are currently updating our programming environment to .NET 6. We are currently in an older version of .NET. This does not make a press release because this is one of those thankless things. It's a very big job, and if we do it right, none of you will notice. Everything will work. It'll be fine, you know. And if it doesn't work, we will hear about it. You will notice. So if we've done our job correctly, and this is not a way for me to sort of cheat on my performance evaluation, Rob, like, yeah, it worked and no one noticed, see? Yeah, so that is underway. We expect that to be done imminently, and by imminently, I'm hoping to have it be released at the end of November. And we're also working with our partners from Ontario. And we're not going to go into too deep of analysis, but detail on this because discussions and negotiations are underway. But we've always had a standing offer to our provincial counterparts, which is to share technology, whether it's best practices or the technology itself. And every province does their own thing when it comes to higher education. And every province has their own way of handling transfer. And we've always said that whatever you do, whether you want to work with us or work on your own, we want to make sure that our platforms can communicate with each other and that we're not developing things in silo. And we're currently doing a gap analysis with our partners at ONCAT to take a look at how they could take BC's TCS and adopt it in Ontario, which would then open the door to having two of the biggest provinces using the exact same technology platform. Now, what this opens up for us is greater opportunities for connection. So we would be able to have insight into each other's courses. We could get insight into course outlines or syllabus that are available in Ontario that we currently don't have access to. Right now, when a course changes in BC, we know about it because it gets reported in the TCS, but we don't have any real visibility into when Ontario courses changes or get re-prefixed. And that presents additional work when a transfer student shows up from Ontario at a BC institution and vice versa. So we are currently in the gap analysis phase and the negotiation phase, so you'll probably be hearing quite a bit more about this in the future. But what this really does is advance one of the major projects that I've been wanting to see achieved, which is a national system of transfer. If we can get Ontario and BC on board, we'll have a couple of provinces surrounded, and we can hopefully get a few more on board as well. Okay, I'm going to pass the baton over to my colleague Jennifer, who's going to tell us about the TCS Pathways project.
I'm nervous. I'm not a public speaker, and I'm following Mike, so that's the worst. And I am a fast speaker, so I invite you afterwards to play back the recording session on half speed. All right. Okay, so the slide deck won't change for a little bit because when Mike was giving me tips about how to present, he was like, tell the story, Jen, tell the story. So I'm like, okay, I'll tell the story. So I'm going to go back in BCCAT history. So we were, does anyone want to take a guess at how old BCCAT is turning next year? We did some testing yesterday, but this involves math. 21. Oh, 21, no. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, so we are turning 35 years next year, which is great. It's a good year. I remember that year. I'm about a decade older than BCCAT, and the transfer system is a couple decades older than me. And so what I've learned and what I do know about the transfer system is that we spend time and dedication and a lot of resources on using technology, advancing technology and using it, including not just the hard bits of technology, the stuff that I don't really understand, but also the cultural and communication context in which it and we reside to facilitate solutions for our learners, for our PSI partners, for our province, and I think even for our country. All right, so we're gonna do a quick recap of history. So 1989, BCCAT was born immediately a year after we compiled a printed version of the BC Transfer Guide that took all the internal tables that individual institutions were publishing and put it together. So we had a centralized resource that our students could use, our sector could use. 5 years later, we did a website. It was like 1995. 1995, we put that information on our website. About 10 years later, we split up the website so we had a front-end system for students and a back-end system for yourselves called the Transfer Credit Evaluation System, the TCES. And then in 2018, we did a collaboration with Campus Manitoba. And we took, I don't know if anybody wants to guess what the buzzword was that year? Does anybody remember the buzzword we dropped in 2018 JAM, like all over JAM? Yeah, say it.
Atomic.
Yeah, it was atomic. We made the data atomic, and that allowed us to do a lot of good work with the data, managing it so that the actual content for students and for PSIs, that workload was just better managed and more current, right? So that was also a really nice opportunity to collaborate with an out of our jurisdiction partner, right? They didn't actually adopt it for government stuff, right? But we got the TCS, and that was a game changer because with our data atomic, it allowed us to do a really cool project with UBC that allowed to incorporate their pan-Canadian and international transfer tables, which launched that across the board. We put the ABE transfer tables onto our site. We put the EAL, and so it was a good few years. It was just before the pandemic, right? So it was a really good few years, and then we also did an external review of our website. And so what we learned from that is our system partners and our students were really, really comfortable using the C2C. They understood it, they got it, they were familiar with it. A little bit less aware of pathways and block transfer options and some of the program-to-program stuff wasn't front of mind, and we didn't have a workflow for it. It wasn't as advanced as our C2C. And then in 2021 JAM, we had a panel session talking about pathways and the challenges that institutions in different people in different roles face doing pathway work. And so that was Brian Dick from VIU. He's doing really good work with engineering stakeholders on the first year Common Core. Rella Ng, at that time, she was in Registrar of Douglas, now she's Registrar of UBC. EPBC was on the panel, and myself. So we from our own roles, we talked about, well, what are the challenges and things that we need to think about through doing pathway work? And I don't know if any of you want to share what you think some issues might be for your institution and or students. It's really not hard. And yeah, I can keep talking. Okay, so we don't have a workflow, so every institution is doing it on their own, and they're using people to remember things and to capture that agreement between two parties who have the best of intentions to create a pathway between their institution and another institution, two programs. It takes a lot of work for those agreements to be made and go through internal their approvals, right? So anywhere between like a year to a year and a half. And that's really great, but it doesn't really get into the details of a pathway. They're just like, this is the program, and if you're in it, you could potentially go to that other program. So it doesn't have the details, like the core stuff that students really might need to know, like where they're at in it. What other things? We lose staff, right? We lose staff, and that's hard sometimes, and then you lose the knowledge that maybe they knew to tell someone else at the other institution about something that happened in their program that might impact their program. So there's a bunch of different things. And then we have students who have that's just a PSI challenge. And we have students, right? Students who have like a few courses and just wondering, well, what can I do with these courses? I don't even know if I have a program in mind, right? And then we have students that are mid-program that do move, so they're trying to bridge. They're not trying to ladder, they're just trying to figure out, I have to go somewhere else, where else could I go, right? Or we have students that have finished a credential and they were like, I really want to do some further education, like what more? Where can I learn more about this, right? So these are just learner challenges, not just the PSI like workload challenges, right? So that all to say, we have the Digital Services Initiative. Ben's here with the ministry, and they're doing really good work on multiple fronts about how we can do this work better, like how we can leverage what we currently have to facilitate these sort of pathway challenges, which are good. It's a good problem to want to try to solve, right? So we can move on to the actual second slide. I don't know how to.
Push the middle.
Middle one? Okay. So we have the TCS. We're familiar with it. People have used it. It does really good work in articulation, right? So you send out a course request, and a subject matter expert reviews it. They establish whether there's equivalency or not. That student knows that that's the credit that they're going to be awarded if they go to another school, right? And that tool itself has some pretty nifty, that whole data atomic thing that was happening. It allows us to manage changes, communication and notification of changes that impact that course and that course agreement. So we thought, well, we could actually just kind of package all of that in a program, right? A program is made up of courses and some other stuff, right? And then leverage what we do currently have, the technology that we currently have, the relationship that we have amongst each other in this transfer system to identify pathways, like better identify pathways and communicate information about these pathways, right? So this is what we're doing right now. We're doing this proof of concept. So it's always really, proof of concepts I love because they manage people's expectations and time. And so we really focused. We took a look at what the higher opportunity occupations were, and we took a look at like, okay, where could we add most value immediately with the proof of concept, right? So we had two groups. We had the Northern Consortium. We do realize that a lot of people stay in the area that they want to, they may start in the area, they may move out, but they take education in close to where their home is. Not me, but other people, right? And so we did the Northern Consortium, then some natural pathways. They're already doing that work at like, at just like a kind of a discipline to discipline area. And we took a handful, about I think 40 programs from those institutions, and we aligned them with the high opportunity occupations that we thought could add value right away. Right? And then we also focused on the really excellent work that engineering is already doing. Engineering's ahead of the curve on pathway work. They don't use technology, but they've built up those relationships, they've made those agreements to have a great first-year Common Core, so that when students are trying to see if they want to do this work, that they can go take that first year a little bit closer to home and see if it's a fit before they go elsewhere, right? So what we're trying to do with the engineering group is just put the technology behind it. Like they've already done the work. So that's sort of our proof of concept, like partners and areas that we've focused on this year, right? And so with the Digital Services Initiative and just the idea that we're trying to leverage what we have and not duplicate work where it doesn't need to be. Technology builds are quite expensive, and not just the initial build, like maintaining that is expensive. So these are some of the build like concepts and principles that underlie it. Like at the very top, interoperability and partnership and collaboration. We've done this in our transfer system. We did it with Campus Manitoba. We're talking about doing it with OnCAT right now. But even within our jurisdiction, we have partners, EPBC. We looked at CDW data fields and tried to align data standards so that we can, in future projects, we will have data in fields that allow our systems to talk together. Right? So we may not have to use the exact same system, but it doesn't help if where our apples and apples don't match. And so we're building out the tool to be able to do that work, even though we're not doing that work right now. Right? So, and transparency and communication and efficiency, those are all really good words. And we are using the tools that we have, but more than that, as you'll see when I go into kind of screenshots of what we're building, we're building off of that. So I think it's pretty cool what we're building, but I'm right in the weeds of it. So so those are sort of the concepts, underlying grounding words. And okay, so now we're actually going to go into the what it is, what am I talking about, right? So we have a Pathways tool. It's a TCS Pathways tool. I don't think we have a proper name for it yet, but that's what we're calling it. And in that Pathways tool, there's two modules. One is a program module, and it will be, if folks have a credential auditing platform or software they use, it'll be similar to that. They'll have a lot of functionality. It will not tie into people's SISs, which is the benefit of a really expensive degree auditing tool. It ties into your SISs. This is a little bit more lightweight. And it will allow for users, it's currently a back-end system, but it will allow for users to be able to assess program completion and progression. And it operates standalone. So we built this intentionally separate, so the folks that don't have that expensive degree auditing system, or their degree auditing system is eons old and they're embarrassed to use it, can also avail themselves to this system-wide tool, right? So then we have this pathway module, and this leverages the program profiles that are built out in the program module, and it allows us to do a gap analysis. Just like the course-to-course, it leverages all of those equivalency information and allows us to see, well, oh, there is an equivalency for that course within these two programs, or, oh, there isn't, and do we want to do anything about that? Oh, on the bottom part, I don't know if you missed it, but there's a repository. We get to collect things, right? We get to collect program profiles, and we get to collect pathway agreements, and everyone can see them. So that's always really nice when you can see what other folks are doing and maybe use that to build up your own pathways. What else? Okay. So what's different about a program profile? So we do pathway work, right? We have block agreements on our website. Our Ontario partners are definitely like knee deep in the pathway stuff, but I want to say that it's at a kind of surface level. Like it identifies that there is one, but it doesn't go into like and what that means. So a student has to do a lot of research, like on different websites, to say, okay, this is the program, and these are the courses that make up that program, and there's that other program, and there's more courses there, and okay, and then I'm going to go to the BC Transfer Guide and then try to figure out like what that means if I take these courses here and I want to graduate there. And so we ask in the program module that programs are the courses that are identified, and the non-course requirements. So policy requirements such as residency, such as grad GPAs, and the like, right? So it is a program profile, and it actually identifies the component parts of that program. And the pathway module takes that information, leverages the TCS stuff, right? Not just the course data, but the course-to-course agreement data, and then shows the picture of what currently exists and how we can improve it. And I call that program pathway strengthening. Okay, so the program module has a couple features. We didn't want to show everything there. It is on test, this particular one, but it is still in the proof of concept stage. So we just excerpted some like screenshots of things that are like benefits of the program profile, program module. So there is a checklist, right? So after you build your program profile, there's a checklist a blank one that can be printed off, but also if you add in the courses that you did take, it'll show it'll show progression. So the checklist will be completed. So for advisors don't currently use our tool, but if they were to use our tool, they could meet with a student, identify the courses that they've taken, identify which of those courses were taken elsewhere and what would receive transfer credit at their institution, and that checklist would populate, and then they could print it up and leave that meeting with some information, some good information. And we also have some tables that indicate progression, right? It'll tell you that, like, and I think sometimes students do get confused about transfer credit's been awarded and transfer credit that's been applied, and we want to make that distinction a little bit more clear. If like you could be trucking along thinking you're doing a good job, but you didn't meet with an advisor, and now you know that you actually need some other things, right? And so this allows students, and eventually, because we do want these tools to be available to students after the proof of concept, right? But in the meanwhile, it'll show like progression, credits, and course progression. Okay, so why build a pathway agreement? So previously I indicated some of the concepts, like interoperability, but collaboration and partnership, and also transparency and communication and efficiency. So this is a system level tool, so that means system members can look at it. So the idea is when you create two program profiles and you select them to perhaps build a pathway agreement between them, you can get a preview. You'll get a preview of a few metrics, how many course outlines are required for this to move forward, right, that are missing. Either they're older than 5 years or they're not there. So it kind of gives you an idea of like, okay, how much work do I have to do before I even send this off to anybody? It'll also tell you how many course-to-course equivalencies that currently exist in the TCS that are a direct match between the courses in the two programs. It'll also tell you how many course agreements that just exist with that institution, right? So it kind of gives you like, how much work do we need to start doing in order to send this off to a partner institution? Then there's a table. We are calling it the path match table, and it identifies, okay, there is this course-to-course equivalency. It has been awarded. do we want to apply it to this pathway and therefore continue, build the agreement that way. So this is kind of the preview stage of it. And then once you launch into the next stage, so we have 3 stages. There's a sender prep stage, a receiver evaluation stage, and then the final review stage. And the 2 parties, because we have a setting set up. So whoever is in institutions, whoever is identified as having the permission and the permission to view and functionality to do things in the tool, they'll get notification. This other PSI wants to have us begin a pathway agreement with you. And at each stage where it progresses, both of those parties are notified of this. So it's kind of that constant communication throughout the workflow that folks will know, okay, this is where we're at right now. The sender's still working on their course outlines, still working on what their pathway attributes are, we're calling information about their program. And then progression will be, sorry, I'm just going to stop that sentence right there. All right. Okay. So then with system-supported communication and change management, so that's that whole idea. You will be able to notify everyone that needs to know something's happening in that agreement building will know. They'll learn about it. And then if you have permission, you can actually see it. So not only will you get a notification, if you log into the tool, you'll be able to see what's happening. Oh, there's still 5 course outlines missing. I'll check again another time, right? Okay, so this is so once we hit the second stage, which is the receiver evaluation stage, right? So there's a program's made up of a bunch of different courses, right? And different subject matter experts will be invited to review the courses that are relevant to them, right? So course to course right now, an institution sends a course request and the subject matter expert is invited to review it, and then they do their articulation. In this instance, the subject matter experts will be invited to review it, and their courses will be identified for them, and they will review each course as it relates to their subject matter. So one of the things is it does provide context, right? So like when faculty are maybe reviewing a course, you think of it, it's like a very it's focused. It's for like one course, one student, whereas with a pathway, because faculty are seeing it, oh, this is the context. We're actually creating a pathway agreement, and it's not just me, and it's not just this one student. This is it. I feel like it'll be helpful to getting that bigger picture context of like pathway and how we're facilitating students along their pathways, right? So none of it will be too dissimilar to what a faculty member would do when they're just evaluating the course, but it's that bigger picture framework. And then and so then stage 3 of the last slide was once that work is done and it's ready for review, whoever needs to review it at the institution, if there's different levels or channels or people that need to be involved, will be invited to review it and look at it in a kind of like what they would do if they had a pathway like paper document and then sign off on it, right? There will be a printed version available for folks that need to like maybe move that piece of paper through internal channels, but they will also be able to sign off electronically on their approvals as well. And what we've noticed from the pathway agreements that we've reviewed, like the paper versions, is institutions are different in how many levels of approval are required. So the tool allows for that. You can configure your settings to make sure that the people that need to approve, and other institutions where there's the registrar approval is enough, and that'll be enough too. So Pathways moving forward. Okay, we're knee deep in the proof of concept. We're building the Pathways module right now, and we hope to have internal testing, so that's us testing it, in January, with user testing in February. I was getting nervous a little bit about deadlines, but definitely in the next few months, right? And so post the proof of concept project piece of it is we will want to operationalize it, right? It is a system level tool. We are doing it for the system. We do believe the system will benefit from it. I 100% understand there's always a lot of work with operationalizing a tool like this, not just at the sector level, but but for institutions, right? You have a lot of other priorities and stuff. So that work will take a couple years, we know, and we really hope, we're really excited about it, and we're here to help, right? So that's kind of our plan. We will identify the next stage partners and programs in the next year as well too, in the next like few months, and then tap folks on the shoulder there. And one of the things that we do need to do is we do need the course catalogs, because the programs are at a course level. We will be using the TCS course library, but usually people put in the TCS courses in the TCS course library because they're trying to articulate a course to course, which will benefit us, but that means not all the courses are in there. So there's that conversation and work that will need to be done. It's a pretty nifty tool. So I think we'll be working on PSI service agreements as well, and ensuring that those are in place to make sure that the data is current. Like it will not serve students if we cannot ensure the data that's in the tool isn't current, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? And so what else? And then there's just all the other projects that could use this tool, right? So like priorities. I feel like there's a lot of priorities happening, right? And so that'll be a Rob decision, right? So we've got APIs. Once we do have the tool built out, we do want institutions to be able to pull that data just for themselves, right? If students want to go to the BC Transfer Guide because they want to know everything, that's fine. But if a student's going to UBC, much like the UBC Transfer Credit tool, right, then they just want to know what they're going to get for the UBC stuff, right? So we're developing APIs next year, and then this is a back-end tool currently, right? It will be front-end. We do want students to be able to use it. It is beneficial for PSIs for workload management and system collaboration. It is very useful for students, right? And then this last one, this kind of scares me, electronic transcript credit transfer assessment. So that's also a big project. I think that's it, right?
All right, and just in case that's not enough work, we do have a number of other things that we are working on that are going to be subject to resource availability, and once we get our .NET environment in place, we're looking at obviously operationalizing Pathways, course refactor, data performance, data market. These things don't mean anything to you. What they really mean is improvements and efficiencies to the way that the data is handled and served in the BC Transfer Guide. We have some dashboard enhancements that we're looking at, as well as the agreement expansion builder. That's a totally natural and not at all staged picture of Jen and I. I'm holding a tablet, or it looks like I'm holding a tablet. I'm actually holding a toy. That is a child's tablet in my hand. That is an empty Perrier in Jen's hand. But the laughter is real because we're laughing at the absurdity of the staging of that picture. So anyway, there's lots of good stuff happening on the TCS. I recognize that we are at time. So rather than doing questions from the audience, what I will do is say we will break for lunch. You're welcome to come up to us and ask us any questions about this at lunchtime. The sessions will be available online, as well as the PDF of the presentation. And we will be back here at 1 o'clock for the next session, which is our student mobility presentation. Thank you.